Jonathan Nowell, President of Nielsen Book. Welcome to the London Book Fair podcast. Now, the market was down by both volume and value in 2009 in the UK. Indeed, Nielsen reports sales through the general retail market as being at their lowest since 2000. Ireland, of course, which has been much more badly hit by recession than we have here, it was down in value but up in volume.
Yes.
What does that tell you?
Well, I think to put it in context, 2009 sales in value terms were down by just 1.2%. In volume terms, it was down by just under 0.5%, which, given the recession, I think was a very creditable performance. I think with regard to Ireland, I suspect that we've seen sales grow in terms of volume at the expense of value, largely because more sales have probably gone through supermarkets in Ireland this year, 2009, than indeed in 2008. I think the general retail market panel, if you like, is principally high street sales. And if you're familiar with the British Retail Consortium figures, you will see there's a general shift in channel away from high street into the online area. That probably explains, in principle, what's happening in this space. So I don't think it's a particularly bad performance by the UK book industry. And I'll come on perhaps in a minute to talk about books per capita sold in the UK versus other territories. But books didn't do that badly. And I think that if we'd had another Harry Potter or a little bit more Stephanie Meyer during the year, book sales would have been positive. That's the sort of influence one book or one author can have in a full year. So I think all of those, plus the disruption around ebooks, will have caused some impact year over year. But I think I personally have a view that if you look at the year-on-year charts and you start to think about where was most of that decline taking place, then my view is a lot of that decline took place in the months of June, July and August. And I think contributing factors to that were weak sterling, people being promised a sort of a fantastically lovely summer, not travelling abroad, and therefore what were they buying in terms of books for their holiday reads? And I don't think they were buying books for holiday reads during that period this year, certainly compared to 2008. And I think that had probably the biggest impact.
Value sales were hit badly by two things: the rise in paperbacks at the expense of hardbacks and an average discount of 25% off the recommended retail price. That's very high, of course. The highest since 2001. But given how cheap hardbacks are, isn't that somewhat paradoxical?
It's a good question. If you look at profitable hardback sales, let's say Wilbur Smith, okay, somebody who you could publish in hardback and you were guaranteed selling 100,000 plus in hardback of his sales. I think those days are gone, I have to say. I think there are some very top authors you can still publish profitably in hardback, but I think there are still far too many hardbacks that are published unprofitably. Currently we're seeing a lot of hardbacks discounted from $17 or $18.99 to under a tenner, and I think it's hard for, given the volume of hardback sales for most hardbacks that are out there, to see how that could possibly be profitable for publishers. While we have large retailers, okay, who are increasing their market share at the expense of arguably smaller players, we really do need to have large publishers of a similar level of market share in order to effectively have a say in discounting policy. And I think that one of the projections, if I could make it going forward in the next few years, is that our largest publishers will need to get larger, and that, I think, calls for further consolidation.
Let's talk about celebrity memoir, which has dominated the 21st century. Sales are down 35 to 40% year on year. Do you think there are lessons that publishers will learn from this?
Yes, of course. And publishers are smart people. Personally, I didn't buy one celebrity memoir last year. And I think that we'll probably see fewer celebrity memoirs out there but those that we do see, I think, are going to be of higher quality and more saleable.
What are the opportunities for smaller, fast-moving, innovative publishers at this point, do you think?
I think it's a really exciting time, I have to say. I think experimentation is easier for smaller, agile, independent players. And I think we're fortunate to have very innovative publishing companies like Canongate and Faber and Quercus and Atlantic and many others, and Profile. And I think the biggest opportunity for these small independent publishers lies in the opportunities that the internet brings in terms of sales of books in all formats, opening up new audiences to English language readers around the globe. And I think it's a great opportunity for them, and I think the future looks reasonably bright for them.
Now, we've talked in passing about Europe and the United States, but what's happening internationally from where you sit?
Okay, well, it's probably just worth for a second just taking a view on the 9 territories that we cover on BookScan, just to give you a sense of where those other territories are in terms of year-on-year volume performance. US is down 1% in terms of volume, which is, I think, again, a creditable performance. UK, as I said before, is down just under 0.5% in terms of volume. If you want to be in publishing and retailing, then Australia is the place to be, I'm afraid. Almost 6% volume growth year over year. Italy declined by about 3%. Ireland saw growth, as you identified earlier, about 4% growth in Ireland. And Denmark was also a couple of percent up. New Zealand, we suspect we're up. We can't do a year-on-year comparison on the panel because Whitcore's joined the panel during the year, and I'm still waiting for numbers on Spain and South Africa. But I think what is really interesting, I then did a very quick calculation on the number of books we sell in those territories per capita of population. And you'd be pleased to know the UK comes out top. We sell about 4 books per capita of population in the UK.
Really, that's a relief and something of a surprise.
It's a relief and something of a surprise. Well, certainly it's a relief. In Australia it's 3, in the US 2.5, Ireland 3.5, unsurprisingly I think. Denmark under 2, etc. So you can see, I mean, the UK, well, we sort of beat ourselves up for declining by 0.5% year over year. We still outperform most countries in the world in terms of the number of books we sell per capita.
We have rich information now about what's selling and what's not. But is there a danger in a way that too much information makes publishers look back over their shoulders and replicate what they perceive as past success stories rather than looking forward and initiating new ideas and new projects?
I think there's 2 or 3 points here. Firstly, I think if you go back before BookScan, I think publishing was largely done in the dark in terms of not knowing how many copies you were selling, week by week. Were we more creative or less creative in those times? Were we more successful or less successful? I don't know the answer to that question, but I would make the point, I think, that data and information is only useful in decision making if it's interpreted and analysed appropriately. And I think UK publishers generally are pretty good at that. And if they publish by numbers, they shouldn't be in publishing. I think that's the first point I want to make. I think one of the challenges that we have going forward is trying to move into this new world of ebooks. And dealing with the plethora of formats that we have available to us in this ebook space, and trying to map and plan a way through that without the data that BookScan provides in the p-book space. And a lot of figures are bandied around on how many e-readers are being sold or how many ebooks have been sold, but actually there's nothing definitive and conclusive. The hard information that we really need is to get the ebook panel set up, and hopefully between now and London Book Fair, we'll be able to make some announcements on the progress of an ebook panel.
Jonathan Nowell, thank you very much indeed.